Hello. I want to talk about the Scottish hate crime law, which has just been passed, well, recently been passed. And there are several things that I find very frightening about it. And the first one is that it applies to private conversations. It means that if you happen to be chatting to somebody and you say something that that person can interpret as whipping up hatred for a protected group, and that's another thing that frightens me because, you know, a definition of a protected group might be anything from one day to the next. Okay, they can report you to the police and have you arrested. They say they can't, but they can. The bill is so widely phrased that if the police want to get you for that, they'll be able to get you for that. So that's frightening number one. Frightening number two is, I told you I have Scottish relatives. I rang up one of them, an educated man, a well-informed man. He didn't know about this law. He had no idea. I think he had some idea that there was a hate crime law going through. He had no idea about the implications. Obviously, it's not being really that much reported in Scotland. So if he doesn't know, then hardly any Scot knows. That's pretty awful. Okay, third one. The bill was devised by a man called Humza, Yousaf, and I am going to play you a speech, not about this bill, but about his attitude to the Scottish legislature, of which he is a member. Okay, I'm going to freeze while I play this clip. Just listen to it.
Most senior positions in Scotland are filled almost exclusively by those who are white. Take my portfolio alone. The Lord President, white. The Lord Justice Clerk, white. Every High Court judge, white. The Lord Advocate, white. The Solicitor General, white. The Chief Constable, white. Every Deputy Chief Constable, white. Every Assistant Chief Constable, white. The head of the Law Society, white. The head of the Faculty of Advocates, white. Every prison governor, white. And not just justice, the Chief Medical Officer, white. The Chief Nursing Officer, white. The Chief Veterinary Officer, white. The Chief Social Work Advisor, white. Almost every trade union in this country headed by people who are white. In the Scottish Government, every Director General is white. Every chair of every public body is white.
All right. So this is a man who hates everybody in that building. Now, yeah, you can say, oh, he's just pointing out what's going on. No, you know, there's an edge to what he's saying. He hates them all. Now, fear number 3, 4, I've lost count now, is that I am convinced that the reason this bill is going through, has the support of the Scottish National Party, is because it's a way for Nicola Sturgeon to tighten her grip on the people of Scotland, to stifle debate, to, arrest political rivals. I mean, she may not do it all at once, but I think probably it will be a good way for her to do that when she needs to. Okay, so here I'm going to read this bill to you. It just seems scarcely creditable. The idea of not arresting people for private conversations goes right back to Elizabeth I. Actually, it goes further back than that, but Elizabeth I was the first person who said that you shouldn't do that. Shall I make a window into men's minds, she said. And that was about, well, religious opinions, basically, but it's been a basis of English law, British law, ever since then. MSPs, members of the Scottish Parliament, approve Scotland's controversial hate crime law. MSPs have passed Scotland's controversial new hate crime law. The legislation consolidates existing law and extends protection for vulnerable groups with a new offence of stirring up hatred. And as I said, vulnerable groups, you know, you can define them in any way you like. And stirring up hatred, you can define that in almost any way you like. And it's not that controversial. It was passed by 82 votes to 32. So that's a pretty stonking majority, I'd say. The Hate Crime and Public Order Bill was first introduced last April in response to an independent review of Scotland's hate crime laws by Lord Brackerdale, but has sparked fierce debate. Look, the whole hate crime idea, which was started by Tony Blair, is wrong. It's wrong in Britain and it should be wrong in Scotland, but the Scots have taken it one step further now. Under this bill, offences are considered aggravated, which could influence sentencing. If they involve prejudice on the basis of age, disability, race, religion, sexual orientation, transgender identity, or variations in sex characteristics. It also creates new offences of stirring up hatred, which previously applied only to race. It shouldn't apply even to that, frankly, but there you are. And abolishes the offence of blasphemy. Well, all right, which has not been prosecuted in Scotland for more than 175 years. An earlier draft of the bill was criticised by the Law Society of Scotland for having a perceived low threshold for prosecution. It's still a low threshold. Even religious and cultural groups, especially religious groups, were worried about its impact. There's Mr. Yousaf with his tartan tie. He took his oath of office wearing a kilt of the same tartan, I might say. The Scottish Government responded by modifying the wording and strengthening freedom of expression provisions. But it doesn't matter. The fact is, concerns remain. Offences can now be committed even in private. So it means your kids can report you for saying something naughty or nasty or intemperate or even hateful. They can report you if they feel that way inclined. Or a guest who, you're having a private chat with can report you. And then the police will be around hammering down your door. You said something nasty, sir. Will you accompany us to the station? Even with the Scottish Government's insistence that the bar for prosecution is high, there are those who still believe this is an example of interference in private and family life. Yes, it is. And as I say, it's the sort of law that you'd find in Pakistan. But until now, not in Britain. Why should any government, they ask, decide what can and can't be said in the privacy of one's home? Indeed, that's a theocratic law, not a civil law. This is the sort of law that you apply in countries where you have to keep control of people's religious belief. So, having said all that, what does all this actually mean for you? Well, it depends on who you are, and crucially, how you're defined by this new law. So you see, the law is applied differently depending on different people, and that is also not a British idea of law. And Scottish Conservative Justice spokesman Liam Kerr said there was inherent ambiguity in the language of the legislation. His name might be pronounced Carr, I don't know. So that's the law. Here we have a law that applies to what people say in private. It's a law that applies to a whole list of people you might not even know are protected, but the law is so framed that the crime and the punishment actually changes according to whom you have a bad opinion of. And then the other thing is that a lot of Scots don't even seem to know that this law has been passed. It's a terrible, dreadful thing. And also, of course, it's something that will help Nicola Sturgeon to consolidate her megalomania. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Granbo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.